She looks so small sitting on the sidewalk. At first, all I can feel is relief that she's safe, and the wolf within me calms at the sight of her. Her black hair, which she's pined into an ornate style, drips onto her glistening pale soul bond. The red dress is slick and clings to her figure, accentuating every soft curve. She shivers against the cold where she's huddled under a tree, and I can't help but wonder if she would have stayed there all night, waiting for me. I can't help the curiosity that fills me when I think of her. We came into each other's life by pure accident, but I've never quite met anyone like her. No one has ever waited for me like that, with such loyalty and patience. It's foolish and reckless, but sweet. And I'm annoyed by the odd sense of affection that fills me as I walk toward her. Seddon. What in default? Tanya's point of view. I brace myself from the cold to be best of my ability. But water trickles between the leaves of the tree I'm crouched under, soaking my gown in spite of my best efforts. But suddenly, the water stops, and I look up in surprise to see Marco holding a black umbrella over my head. My heart skips a beat at the sight of him, and he wordlessly takes off his jacket, draping it over my shoulders and shielding me from the rain. He examines my shivering form with displeasure before speaking. You shouldn't be out in this weather. How long have you been out here foolishly waiting for me? You look like a sad little wet flower. Honestly, I'm not sure how long it's been. I lost track of time a while ago, and right now all I can think about is the fact that he's actually here. I don't know. But I couldn't leave. I was afraid you'd show up, and I'd be gone. I couldn't do that to you. He shakes his head with disapproval, and perhaps I have behaved like a petulant child. But he came, and he found me. And look, I say softly, here you are now. He's silent for a moment, considering my words as I look up at him, little droplets clinging to my lashes. Finally, he sighs, running a hand through his soaking hair. Tanya, I didn't invite you to this restaurant tonight. Someone else sent the flowers. I don't really celebrate Valentine's Day. My shoulders sag slightly in defeat as his words sink in. The roses, the restaurant. He really didn't want to celebrate with me. Oh, that's okay, Marco sighs, unconvinced. He kneels in front of me so he can look into my eyes. I had no idea it was so important to you. I've just never cared about the holiday that much. But if I'd known that you did, I would have spent it with you. Despite the cold, warmth starts to spread within me as he reaches for something, and my eyes go wide as he pulls out a small bouquet of wildflowers. The stems are slightly crushed, but the dainty petals are intact, and the droplets on them look like little diamonds, glittering in the night. It's late, so all the shops are closed now, but I came across these a short while ago, he says, his voice softening. They made me think of you, little flower. I'll get you a formal Valentine's Day gift later, but for now, this will have to do. Little flower. I blush at the pet name. When I first came here, I wanted to look like an elegant rose for him, but these wild, colorful, delicate flowers are so much more beautiful. I would much rather be Marco's little flower than a luxurious rose. I take the small bouquet from his hands, touched by the gesture. They're perfect, I whisper. Thank you. Something makes the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end, and the strange sensation of being watched makes me tear my gaze away from Marco. Between the rain and the shadows, I swear I saw Ayana's eyes watching us from across the street, full of contempt and indignation. But when I blink and look again, there's nothing there. Maybe I imagined it. Come on, let's get you home, Marco says, standing up. I turn my attention back to him, happy to obey, but when I try to get up, my legs are shaky. I've been curled up and trembling in the cold for so long that my feet have gone completely numb, and I get dizzy when I try to move. I stumble into Marco's arms, his large hands catching me before I stagger to the ground. For a moment, I'm frozen in his arms, my heart racing in my chest as my head spins. Marco's arms are strong around me, but I quickly struggle to regain my footing. Whether he calls me a little flower or not, I know he doesn't love me. Our marriage is an arrangement, and he probably doesn't want this kind of closeness between us. Marco frowns after I pull away, appraising my movements. To my surprise, he kneels in front of me, gesturing for me to climb onto his back. "I'll carry you," he says, his tone commanding. I almost protest, saying that I don't want to inconvenience him. But I can barely stand, let alone walk home through the rain. Hesitantly, I wrap my arms around his broad shoulders. His muscles are hard and taut against my soul bond, and I pray he can't feel my racing heart as I gently take the umbrella from him, holding it to free his hands. He stands up, his hands grasping my thighs. His touch is hot and firm, even through the damp fabric of my dress. Even though we're both drenched, I hold the umbrella to shield our heads as he starts walking back toward the townhouse. The street lamps are reflected on the rain-covered pavement. Against the glittering lights of the night, I can make out our silhouette between the shadows. I smile at the image. There, reflected in the rain, we look almost like a painting or a postcard. We look like a real couple. If anyone looked, they'd see a husband and wife sharing an intimate moment in the rain. It's so sweet and simple that it fills me with a cozy sort of courage. I hesitate for a while, but then slowly, I gently rest my head on his shoulder, soaking in the comfort of our proximity. Marco notices my gesture, and he tugs slightly over his shoulder, pulling the coat that's draped around me tightly. I bite my lower lip softly, failing to hold back a little smile. He must think I'm only leaning against him because of the cold. But that's okay. He doesn't mind. He doesn't push me away. I know he's not in love with me, and we're not a real couple. But for now, he holds me closely, making me feel safe and warm. I know I will treasure the memory of tonight, long after it ends. And in this moment where it's just the two of us and the rain, that is enough. When we get to the townhouse, Marco sets me down gently. Arriving here with him really makes it feel like coming home. Once I've found my footing, Marco steps back to examine me, ensuring that I'm okay and I can stand on my own. However, it's not my own well-being that worries me but his. There's a strange expression on his face, and he's gritting his teeth together as if trying to suppress it. But it's not just the look on his face. There's something else I can't really describe that makes me shiver anxiously. There's a sort of feral aura around him, like some otherworldly beast is taking hold of him, and Marco is struggling to hold it back. "Marco, are you okay?" "I'm fine," he growls. He takes a few shaky breaths, fighting to calm himself as fear courses through my veins. "What's happening to him? Go to your room, Tanya." I can tell it's an order, not a request, but I'm hesitant to leave his side when he's in such a state. Concern urges me towards him, and I take a small step towards him in hopes of comforting him, but he pulls away sharply as if trying to maintain a safe distance between the two of us. "I don't want to leave you like this." "What's wrong?" "I said I'm fine." He barks at me, his tone fierce and commanding. I shrink back slightly. Startled by the aggression, I can see him fighting to remain calm. "Just go to your room," he grunts, as if it's difficult to get the words out. "I won't ask again. Lock the door and don't come out until the sun rises, no matter what." I don't dare refuse him, so I quickly rush to my room and do as he says. I try to get ready for bed, but I can't stop worrying about Marco. I pat my hair dry with a towel and slip onto a nightgown, leaving on my wedding ring and ruby necklace like I always do. I'm starting to wonder how I will be able to sleep when I'm so concerned about Marco when a horrible howl tears through the night. I whirl around in a panic at the sound, my gaze landing on the bedroom window as the roar echoes around me, outside amidst the blackness. The full moon shines in the sky. Chapter 1 has come to a close. Please stay with us as we read through the rest of this story. If you are watching, please give us a like and leave a comment telling us where you are tuning in from. Now, let's continue listening. The howling continues. Each guttural roar, more pain than the last. I know Marco told me to stay in my room no matter what, but his tortured cries pierce my soul and reverberate deep within me until I can't take it anymore. I open the door of my room, hesitating in the hallway for a moment, as my concern for Marco wars against fear and uncertainty. Finally, I reach his room, but when I knock on the door, there's no answer. Every few minutes, there's another pained howl, and the silence in between is just as alarming. His room is locked from the inside, and the door won't budge when I struggle with the knob. Desperation intensifies my need to reach him, to help him. I look around until my eyes land on a decorative candelabra on the hallway counter. Another anguished howl snaps me into action, and I instinctively grab the candlestick and slam it onto the doorknob. It takes me a few tries until I manage to knock the metal hard enough that the lock gives in, and I'm able to swing the door open. Inside, the room is dark, but I can make out Marco's silhouette a few feet away from me. Only it's not Marco, at least not the Marco I know. He's shifted into his Lycan form, his usually broad shoulders and defined muscles becoming even larger and sharper. His fur is black as night, and the moonlight glints on the curved, sharp presence. In this form, he's as terrifying as he is beautiful. But what shocks me isn't the fierce aura around him, but rather his eyes. His beautiful blue eyes have turned a shade of red, like a crimson fire, burning beneath the surface of cyan ice. "Marco," I ask softly. His wolven ears twitch at the sound of my voice, and his gaze dives into me. My heart pounds in my chest, my breathing ragged as I take in the sight of him. His clothes have been reduced to torn rags, his shirt is utterly destroyed, and his pants are shredded. But the strangest thing is the silver line across the base of his palm. I've never seen anything like it before. The silver vein glows as if moonlight and steel flowed through it instead of essence, flickering and pulsing softly like a heartbeat. I watch in horror as the silver begins to spread slowly, rising past his wrist and slithering up to his forearm. I barely have time to worry about it because Marco starts moving toward me. I take a few shaky steps across his room as he circles me with a wild, menacing gaze. He stalks me with the silence and elegance of a powerful entity, herding me deeper into his room until I'm cornered against the back. He comes closer. All I can do is close my eyes as tears stream down my cheeks. He's not in control, I tell myself. A shiver passes through me as the air between us grows cold. I can feel the raw energy of his struggle, a fierce tension that feels as sharp as a blade, and I close my eyes uncertain of what the storm within him will bring. But it never comes. Instead, I open my eyes in time to see Marco tear my mother's ruby necklace off my neck. I wince as the necklace clatters on the ground, and the moment it leaves my soul bond, I feel something indescribable burst within me. An unspeakable force ripples through my body as I feel myself caught in a vortex of energy I can neither see nor understand. Something changes deep within me, like some kind of chain around my soul has been snapped beyond repair. I gasp in a trance-like state as I even feel the sound of a wolf's howl echoes in my mind. But then, just as quickly as it appeared, the energy around me dissipates, and the haunting howl also goes quiet. Everything in the room is exactly as it was only a moment ago. And I start to wonder if I imagined all of it. Before I can think about it further, Marco roars again, and his pained howl is so overwhelming that I quickly forget about the wolf's howl I heard in my mind. What's happening to you?" I whisper. Marco breathes heavily, and something flickers in his eyes like there's still a part of him fighting against the force taking hold of his body. Slowly, I raise my hand and press my palm against his heaving chest, trying to soothe him in any way I can. Something softens about him, seemingly calmed by my touch, and I watch in awe as he shifts back into human form. but those red embers of madness still glow in his eyes. The essence list of his Lycan form has faded, but whatever dark and feral power courses through him is still affecting him. Suddenly, he wraps his arms around me and picks me up in one swift motion, and I can't help the small cry that escapes me. He carries me to the windowsill until I'm sitting on the edge. "Marco," I mumble in surprise. The sound of his name on my lips makes him growl softly, but not with anger. "My mate," he says, and before I can process the words, he must be confused, the madness clouding his senses. He probably thinks I'm Lily again. The realization makes my heart shrink with sadness. "Wait," I tell him, pressing my hand against his chest to push him back. He stops kissing me but stays close, his muscles taut under my palm. "Marco, do you recognize me? Do you even know who you're with right now?" His hands are still on my body, making it hard to focus. But he holds my gaze and his words are unmistakable when he replies. "You're Tanya, my mate," he says, and then he kisses me again. I don't understand what he means. Does he actually know he's with me? He said my name, but does he think he's with Lily somehow? That silver vein continues to pulse on his arm, and every now and then I see his muscles tense. Like the curse is still sending shocks of dark power through him. But I silence his pained growls with a kiss, and the beastly aura recedes slightly. I caress and comfort him, and the roaring becomes less frequent, as if my presence soothed him. Eventually, he stops convulsing entirely as he gives himself over to the pleasure of our embrace, and he rolls onto his side, resting his head on my chest. I run my fingers through his golden brown curls, letting him find peace and calm. His breathing slows, and my own racing heart steadies as he drifts off. Once I'm certain he's sleeping soundly, I try to slip out of his arms to go back to my room, but he's so large and heavy against me. When I move, he wraps his arms tighter around me, holding me against him. He keeps his head on my chest as if my heartbeat was the lullaby that carried him peacefully into sleep. I'm so relieved to see him resting that I don't have the heart to wake him, so I let myself relax under his weight and warmth. Before I can make sense of anything that happened tonight, my eyelids grow heavy, and my thoughts are drowsy. I fall asleep, wrapped up in him. Sunlight pours into the room, bathing me in a warm light. I blink a few times to shake away the drowsiness that clings to me as I look around. I need to sneak back to my room, but when I move, Marco's eyes meet mine. They're a bit groggy with sleep, but they've returned to their usual shade of blue, with no trace of the crimson that burned in them during the night. I take in a sharp breath, startled by the intensity of his gorgeous gaze. "What happened last night?" he asks defensively, pulling away slightly to survey our surroundings. Something tightens in my chest as I realize he doesn't remember anything that happened. My mind races to explain. "You were howling in pain. I know you told me to stay in my room, but I was worried. I came to check on you, but nothing happened. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to intrude, but when I tried to leave..." I know I disobeyed his orders last night by coming into his room, but before I can apologize further, Marco pulls away from me completely. Sitting up on the edge of the bed, his golden curls are tousled, and his soul bond almost seems to glisten in the morning sunlight. "You probably heard the rumors about the second prince having a curse," he says, seeming more embarrassed than I've ever seen him. "I call it the curse of the essence moon because I'm trapped in my Lycan form on every full moon and fall into a frenzy of essence lust. I lose control completely, reduced to a primal state of madness. Even on nights when the moon isn't full, I'm plagued by pain and nightmares. We got lucky last night. It's dangerous to be around me during a full moon since I can't hold back under the effects of the curse." He sounds almost apologetic as he explains, and my heart aches for him. Something he says catches my attention, and I sit up slightly as well. You said you're trapped as a Lycan, but last night you were able to gradually shift back into your human form. His eyes widened slightly, with disbelief at my words. That's impossible. Nothing can alleviate the symptoms of the curse while the full moon is out. And yet something did. All I can do is shrug in reply. I have no explanation for what I saw last night. Honestly, I'm just grateful. I was able to help in any way. Marco turns away from me, his gaze becoming distant as he's lost in contemplation. I take the opportunity to slip quietly off the bed, and the floor is cold against my bare feet. Marco is lost in thought, barely registering my movement. I should go and let him rest. We both had an intense night. Before exiting the room, I stopped to pick up my ruby necklace from the floor. A part of me expects to feel something as I clasp my mother's necklace around my neck, but nothing happens. I'm filled with strange suspicion that whatever changed last night when I took the ruby off isn't going to revert back, even if it's back on. The ruby necklace. Marco's curse. The howling. The way he called me mate. I don't understand what happened last night, but I can't shake the feeling that somehow we crossed some kind of line. Maybe it's all in my head, or perhaps something changed deep within me, and now things will never be the same. Sayen. Huene. The next day at work, my mind is clouded by the memories of everything that happened last night. In spite of this, I do everything I can to stay focused, since today is an important day at the Eau de Lune Parfumery. I can't afford to be distracted. One of the perfumery's senior managers is hosting a tour for the newer employees. Oscar, the guide for the day, will be showing us some of the company's most famous fragrances. He leads us through the winding halls of the perfume factory to a showroom at the back. I've never seen this part of the company before. My colleagues and I explore the display as Oscar explains that these perfumes here are the pride and joy of the perfumery. Custom created by Lily's family, the Montaneros. The Montanero family owns the Eau de Lune Parfumery. Their unique fragrances and formulas date back generations of apothecaries, chemists, and perfumers. The Montaneros' custom line of perfumes is unique for several reasons. They were created by Miss Lily Montanero's ancestors. Their craftsmanship and silence with scents are still unrivaled. Besides, many of them also have special functions. The substances in this room are also medicinal. These perfumes go above and beyond the practice of aromatherapy and have been used to treat various ailments. Some are potent enough to be used as sedatives and anesthesia, while others have powerful effects similar to opiates that can induce hypnotic or even hallucinogenic states. He says before pointing to one vial on the display. This solution has been used to relieve symptoms of respiratory diseases, and this other one can effectively treat insomnia and improve sleep disorders. Some of these seem more like magic potions than simple perfumes. I look through the various flakons and bottles. The labels indicate that many of the extracts and solutions were created by one of Lily's ancestors, a woman called Margaret Montanero. The other co-workers gawk and gasp in amazement as Oscar shows us some of the books left by Lily's forefathers, which include various studies and formulas for the extraordinary perfumes. But the scents are so vivid and alluring that I struggle to focus on Oscar's words. Somehow, I feel like my senses have sharpened, and I'm surprised by the intensity of the smells and the ease with which I recognize them. We still have documents on the Montanero's process for creating fragrances, but only the Montanero family possessed the ability to create the extraordinary effects of their perfumes. Unfortunately, the silence required to craft them has been lost by this generation. But even as Oscar speaks, I close my eyes and imagine how the different aromas come together in each vial. I frown, filled with an uneasy sense of shock. If the Montanero's unique silence has been lost, how can I instinctively distinguish the ingredients that fill the air? My attention glides across the display, caught by a particular scent. I let my intuition guide me, following the strangely familiar fragrance across the room. I recognize those floral notes and earthy accords, and I find myself drawn to them. "Tanya," Oscar says suddenly, appearing in front of me. The manager cuts me off, blocking a path I was subconsciously following. "What do you think you're doing?" I snap out of my daze and stare at the ground, self-consciously. "I'm sorry. I thought I smelled something." That area of the display is not open to the public. We keep Miss Lily's custom creations there. Her perfumes have won contests and are a testament to her unique craftsmanship, but those are not for sale, and they are not part of today's tour. Do you understand? "Yes, sir." My apologies. I mumble sheepishly before rejoining the group. I stay with the other employees for the rest of the tour, haunted by the familiarity of Lily's collection and the intuitive sense of Margaret Montanero's extraordinary creations. When I arrive home, I'm surprised to find Marco waiting for me in the townhouse. He leans against a nearby window with his arms crossed in that commanding, unbothered posture of his. When he sees me, he nods towards an iron key resting on the nearby glass counter. An elegant black ribbon is tied around the ornate key's handle. "What's this?" I ask, picking it up gently. "A belated Valentine's Day gift. I said I would get you. Something official." This is it. I examine the key in my hands, filled with curious excitement. "Marco, thank you. You didn't have to. You don't even know what it is yet," he interjects, the corner of his lip curling almost imperceptibly in an amused smirk. The key opens a small attic on the top floor of the townhouse. "Your gift is there." I glance down the corridor, wondering what it could be. "But before you go look, I need to tell you something," Marco says. "The autumn equinox is coming, and the royal family will be holding a celebratory banquet at the palace. You'll be expected to attend with me. It's not exactly a casual invitation, and I can't help the anxious butterflies in my stomach at the thought of going to the palace with him. I remember Kathy stopped with a list of perfumes for an upcoming banquet the other day. She must have been referring to the celebration of the autumn equinox. Well, don't just stand there, he says, and I can't figure out if his tone is impatient or playful. I told you what I needed to say. Go enjoy your Valentine's Day gift, little flower. I blush at the nickname before nodding and heading towards the attic. I hesitate in the doorway, looking at the beautiful little key before sliding it into the lock. The door swings open with a soft click. The moment the door swings open, I'm struck by a variety of delectable scents. My eyes widen as I step inside and take in the sight of the quaint space in the attic. The room has been refurbished with a large desk and several shelves full of equipment and ingredients. There are several copper and glass distillation stills, as well as various tubes, beakers, and droppers. The shelves are lined with jars of dried herbs, barks, and resins. There are also vials with a variety of solvents and oils. The equipment and materials here are brand new and sophisticated, only of the highest quality. The smells that fill the air are so delectable that my heart skips a beat. Marco has even provided a few blank journals for me to record different formulas and take notes. It's not just a hobby room. This is a fully stocked laboratory for me to create perfumes and potions. The little apothecary shop he's made for me right in his townhouse is a dream come true. This space is perfect for me, cozy and well-equipped, so I can comfortably spend hours in here doing what I love. The thoughtfulness behind Marco's gift fills me with warmth and joy. He promised me a Valentine's Day gift, but I never expected this. I had no idea he knew how much my work meant to me, and the possibilities of what I could do with these supplies seem endless. There's so much I can experiment with, not just commercial perfumes, but tinctures, lotions, balms, and all kinds of fragrances. I try to remind myself that this is just a formal gesture. Marco has made it clear that what he feels for me is not love but rather a sense of marital duty and responsibility. I know I should be reasonable and logical in response to his gift, but I believe that to create this room for me, at least in some way, Marco must truly care for me, and I can't help the joy and gratitude that fills my heart. How dai? Shao dao di. Third, point of view. Madame Carlotta is not only the owner of the capital's successful dress store, but she is also the most prolific and respected fashion designer in the kingdom. She does not often make house calls, but on this occasion, she will make an exception for an old friend. In preparation for the autumn equinox banquet, she visits Lily's mother, Vivian Montenero. In her home, Vivian welcomes Madame Carlotta with friendliness and enthusiasm. And the designer quickly gets to work taking her measurements for the gown Vivian will wear to the banquet. While Madame Carlotta gets to work, the two women chatter away happily. Honestly, Vivian, you should have seen it, Madame Carlotta says with an excited smile. I thought I would never find someone who could wear the treasure of the store gown, but that girl Prince Marco brought back wore my masterpiece so perfectly. I gave her the dress. Vivian Montenero arches a brow with interest at the news. She knows that even her daughter Lily and the other noble ladies of the court were never able to pull off the famous gown. She must be very special indeed if you let her keep your treasure. Is she really so beautiful? Madame Carlotta nods eagerly. Yes, her figure is slim but elegantly curved, with fair soul bond that looks like porcelain and the most stunning turquoise eyes that seem to match and complement her husband's. It's like Marco's eyes are the fair blue of a clear sky, and his wife's are the exotic blue-green of the sea. Honestly, they look like a perfect couple. She sounds lovely. If I ever get the chance, I would quite like to meet her, Vivian exclaims. You should. She truly is lovely. Madame Carlotta agrees, and she's not arrogant and spoiled like some of the noble ladies. When I saw her in my store, she was actually very sweet and polite. But enough about that. Tell me about you. How have you been? How are your sons? Vivian smiles as the seamstress finishes her measure, telling her about her two sons. Lily's elder brothers are very different from each other, but equally wonderful in their mother's eyes. The eldest is calm and steady, while the younger son is lively and outgoing. The two women continue talking for a while, passing the time with pleasant conversation and catching up on the latest gossip. Ever since I discovered the collection of extraordinary fragrant potions created by the Monteneros, I've fantasized about recreating them. There is one in particular that is said to fight allergies, quickly relieving the symptoms of a reaction. Using the equipment in the laboratory that Marco got me, I try to recreate the special perfume from memory. Unfortunately, I think the formula calls for an extract of butterbur flower, which is rare in these parts of the kingdom. I don't have any of it in stock in the little perfumery in the attic, so instead, I use a combination of ginger root and apple blossom to replicate the scent. Hours begin to pass as I extract and distill the oils of various plants, and I add licorice root and stinging nettle to try and match the aroma in my memory. Much to my dismay, I can't get the final step right. I try to mix the solution, adding the ethanol to the oils and extracts. But the liquids don't blend right. Each attempt ends in a pungent, oily black mess as the substance boils and burns in all the wrong ways. Every failure is more discouraging than the last. At one point, the bubbling beaker overheats as I try to distill the mixture yet again, causing it to break. A startled yelp escapes me as the glass bursts, sending small shards flying. I struggle to clean up, feeling utterly defeated. Perhaps I made was wrong. I was convinced that I could replicate the perfume from the special collection, or at least create something similar. But no matter how hard I try, I can't get it right. One of the glass shards from the explosion cut my palm, and I wince at the stinging pain. With a sigh, I start to clean up a bit, pushing past the crushing disappointment. I'm determined to try just one more time. Once again, I extract the oils from the selected plants and add the solvent. When I carefully bring the fluids to a boil, I can't help but panic slightly at the sight of little black bubbles appearing. I rush to stir the elixir, desperate to prevent the chemicals from reacting badly again. In my haste, a drop of essence slips from the wound on my hand, spilling into the boiling liquid. Frustrated, I remove the beaker from the flame, ready to give up. But then, much to my surprise, the black bubbles dissipate, and the mixture settles, revealing a golden honey-colored elixir. I gasp in delight as the scent of sweet spices fills the air. Due to the missing ingredient I had to replace, the effects might be slightly weaker, and the smell is somewhat different from the one in the showroom. But I did it. I created an extraordinary perfume. I stare in amazement at the wonderful little healing potion, quickly pouring it into a tiny bottle and savoring the elegant and earthy smell. I can't help but wonder what finally stabilized the fluids, and my eyes widen in shock as I look at my hand, my gaze fixed on the small, scarlet trickle of essence. Marco and I enter the banquet hall arm in arm for the autumn equinox banquet. The gown he's gotten me for the occasion is not yellow or orange like the leaves of the season, but rather a rich metallic gold, the color of sunlight. The silky fabric is so magnificent that it needs no gaudy ruffles, no bows, or frilly accessories to accentuate its beauty. Its simplicity is elegant and regal, with short swooping sleeves that droop off my shoulders. The silky fabric hangs around my curves to accentuate my figure, flowing with my movements as we walk through the banquet hall. It matches the delicate chain of my ruby necklace and the golden wedding ring I've become so accustomed to wearing. Marco's eyes trail over my silhouette approvingly, and I feel my cheeks flush under his brazen gaze. Before I can thank him for the dress, he excuses himself with a polite nod, explaining that he needs to go speak to some of the other guests. A few minutes pass before Marco's sister spots me, and she approaches me like a vulture descending on its prey. Her own dress is short and black, and I flinch at the rage in her eyes as she realizes that it pales in comparison to mine. "Well, look who it is," she says mockingly. "How ironic is this? The gold dragger is dressed in gold." I bow my head slightly, remembering my place, and Kathy takes a long sip from the cocktail in her hand before speaking again. "It seems you are trying quite hard to fit into a world where you don't belong," she sneers. She coughs slightly, taking another gulp from her drink. Ahem, she clears her throat. "I don't know why he even brought you here tonight. Nobody wants." She stops mid-sentence, unable to finish. Whatever insult she was going to throw at me fades from her lips as her expression contorts in pain. I gasp in horror as the princess staggers backward and collapses on the ground, unconscious at my feet. I feel everyone's eyes turn on me as I stumble back slightly in surprise. I barely have time to process what's happening before Ayana appears at the edge of the crowd. She shoves her way past me, almost knocking me off my feet as she rushes to Kathy. "Kathy! Kathy, wake up!" she cries, shaking the princess violently by the shoulders in an attempt to rise her, her voice drawing even more attention to the scene. "Somebody gets help!" Ayana shrieks at the top of her lungs, but despite all her yelling, Kathy remains unconscious. Suddenly, I see Ayana's expression twist from melodramatic exaggeration to genuine fear as she holds her hand by Kathy's face. I'm filled with horror as I realize she's trying to feel Kathy's breath, and a sickening sort of understanding washes over me as I see that Kathy isn't moving at all. What happened? Is she okay? I ask, my voice shaky with concern. Ayana's attention whirls furiously towards me. "No. She is not okay." She yells as if it were somehow my fault. "Kathy is not breathing. Tanya has silenced the princess." "What? No, how can she say that?" I would never. My mouth drops open in shock as the crowd gathers around me. "Arrest her." Suddenly, the crowd erupts, and a firm hand takes my arm, leading me away amidst the chaotic accusations. A kind-faced young man emerges, and I recognize him from the auction. He's a friend of Marco's. Let her go. Tanya is married to the second prince. She would never harm Kathy. Everything is happening so quickly, and I can barely understand what's going on. The hand grabbing my arm stiffens as another voice cuts through the commotion, cold and commanding. Who dares lay a hand on my wife? T. The crowd parts as Marco storms towards me, and the angry guests that were trying to throw me out release me immediately, backing away from Marco with fear. I'm filled with relief at the sight of him. His presence giving me a much-needed sense of security. If anyone wants to take away Tanya, they're going to have to go through me, he says. Power radiating off him like an aura. He surveys the scene, daring anyone to defy him and try to hurt me. No one dares to challenge him. Too fearful of his strength and rage. But Ayana is relentless, and her expression softens into fake submissive sadness as she speaks to Marco. My prince, Tanya has silenced your beloved sister, she says, pointing to Kathy's still figure. Everyone watches in silent anticipation as Marco walks past me and kneels by his sister, examining her with a frown. Kathy is still not breathing, but when Marco checks her pulse, relief smooths over his handsome features. She's still alive, but her heartbeat is very weak, he says before turning to me, ignoring Ayana. Tanya, I need you to tell me exactly what happened. I shake my head softly, still trembling. Marco needs my help, and I try to remember every detail. What could have caused something so terrible? I don't know. We were just standing here. I'm not sure what happened. She was talking to me, and she had a few sips of her drink. Then she just started choking and passed out of nowhere. Her drink. He repeats the words to himself, an idea suddenly forming in his mind. He looks at his unconscious sister once again, and I can see the gears turning in his head. Kathy's drink is splashed on the floor next to her. Marco lifts her sleeve to reveal a red rash on her hand, where she spilled the liquid when she fainted. My sister has a severe allergy to lemons, he mumbles, leaning over Kathy's figure to examine her spilled cocktail. His powerful sense of smell confirms his suspicions. It's faint, but there's a scent of lemon juice in this drink. She must have had an allergic reaction to the cocktail. That's why her soul bond turned red where she spilled the beverage on herself, and she choked while drinking it. The crowd murmurs with concern, and their eyes once again fall on me. So what? That doesn't change anything, Ayana insists, determined to blame me for all this. Kathy and Tanya were the only ones here. Tanya must have put the lemon juice in Kathy's drink to poison her. Marco, everyone knows that the princess and your wife don't get along. I can't believe she would accuse me of something so awful. As much as she mocked me, I would never hurt Kathy. Thankfully, Marco's friend steps forward again to silence her. That's ridiculous. Tanya is new to the capital. How could she know about Kathy's allergy? Why are you defending her, Oliver? That rival tried to silence Princess Kathy. Ayana snaps back. Ayana and Oliver argue, their voices growing louder as tension rises. The crowd begins to panic as Kathy remains unmoving. Only Marco's furious roar cuts through the noise, quieting everyone down. Everyone remains calm. My sister doesn't have a lot of time. Right now, the only thing that matters is finding a way to save her. Once she's awake, she can tell us what happened herself. For now, we need to focus on helping the princess. He scans his surrounding, ordering one of the guards to send for the royal physician. But he said it himself, Kathy doesn't have much time left. If the doctor takes too long to arrive, they might not be able to save her. She hasn't been breathing for a few minutes, and if her heart stops beating, no medicine will be able to bring her back. Prince Eric appears behind me, the fear evident on his face. I've never seen the royal family looking so concerned. I'll send a maid to look for Kathy's medication, but her room is huge, and it's a mess, Eric says. Besides, Our sister has not had an allergic reaction for a long time, and I doubt even Kathy remembers where she left the medicine. It will take far too long to find it, longer than Kathy has left. The princess's life hangs in the balance, and with every passing second, she's in more and more danger. Just when it seems all hope is lost, I remember the small bottle of extraordinary perfume I slipped into my purse before coming to the banquet. It's the special concoction I made to heal allergies. I make my way through the crowd as fast as I can, getting my dainty clutch purse. Several people stare at me in open judgment and disbelief as I pull out the little vial and hurry to Marco's side. I can help her, I say quickly. This is too urgent for me to be shy about my creations. If I don't do something, Kathy could die. Marco looks at me, surprised by my words. He glances down at the bottle in my hands with a questioning expression. This isn't a regular perfume, it's also a healing potion. The fragrance could alleviate your sister's allergic reaction, allowing her to breathe again. If I apply it to her, it could save her life. Various nobles scoff and mumble their disapproval, ridiculing my words, but we're running out of time, and I don't care if they make fun of me. The only one that needs to believe me is Marco. If he lets me, I will do whatever I can to save his sister. Please, Marco. Let me help. I need you to trust me. He peers into my eyes, staring straight into my soul. I believe you. Do it. A few onlookers gasp and protest, but a glare from Marco is enough to stop anyone from interfering as I crouch next to the princess. Carefully, I spray the perfume over her and then unscrew the lid and hold the bottle under her nose for good measure, letting the aroma waft up to her. The room is as silent as the grave as they all wait to see what happens. And after a moment, Kathy gasps. Relief spreads across the room as Kathy's brothers come to her side and help her steady herself as she wakes up. The princess takes several shaky breaths, eager to get air back in her lungs. Ayana leans in close as well, shoving me out of the way. But I don't mind. I'm just happy to see Kathy breathing again. Kathy! Thank the goddess you're okay. I was so worried. Tell us what happened. Did Tanya give you that drink? Ayana asks, and from the corner of my eye, I swear I could have seen her wink at Kathy, encouraging her to blame this whole thing on me. Kathy just looks at me, and then at her spilled drink on the floor, her face slowly starting to regain color. No, I got it for myself from somewhere else. This was all a terrible mistake. It has nothing to do with Tanya. I can't help but smile at her softly. I'm happy to know that Marco's sister is okay and that, in spite of our differences, she's an honest person. It seems we'll be able to put this whole nightmare behind us. But then Lily's voice cuts through the air, unusually cold. I feel her eyes burning on me as she points at the perfume bottle in my hand. Her tone sharp as steel. Where did you get that? I turn towards Lily, surprised by the chill in her tone. I've never seen her be openly hostile before, but when I look into her eyes, it's not just anger that fills them, it's fear. What could she possibly be afraid of? I can't figure out what's going through her mind, but I don't get the chance to ask her. Ayana leaps at the opportunity to accuse me once again, yelling in my face. So, she's not an extinguisher, but she's a thief, she cries. Eric and Marco help Kathy to her feet as the princess slowly begins to recover. Still, Ayana is relentless in her efforts to make me seem like the villain. That extraordinary perfume. You took it from Lily's family. They recently showed Montenero's custom perfume collection at the perfumery. Tanya must have stolen it from there. I would never do that, I tried to explain. It's true that I visited the perfume display, but I didn't steal anything. I made this fragrant potion myself, recreating the formula from what I smelled in the special collection. Everyone's eyes dart between Ayana and me, unsure of whom to believe. Lair, she persists. The Montenero's extraordinary perfumes are unique. No one else can create their special effects. How dare you say that you made it? You obviously stole it. Even Marco's friend Oliver seems like he doesn't know what to say. I start to panic again, fearing they'll try to arrest me once more. I'm telling the truth, I swear, I say pleadingly. I recreated it from memory. I'm hit with an idea, and I hold up the little vial, showing it to everyone. I made this perfume, but I didn't have all the right materials, so I had to replace an ingredient. I couldn't find any butterbur flowers, so I used apple blossom and ginger root instead. So my perfume even smells different from the ones made by the Monteneros. It's true, but silence hangs in the hall. The crowd remains divided and unconvinced, our argument reaching an apparent stalemate. My formula is unique, but unless I can prove it's actually different from the Montenero's perfume, no one will believe that I made it. Ayana will insist that I stole the bottle from the perfume display. She is an established member of the court and a friend of Lily's. If it's just her word against mine, they will believe Ayana over me. But then suddenly, a beautiful woman with dazzling green eyes steps forward. She smiles at me kindly, and I'm touched and surprised by her friendliness. That's Lady Vivian Montenero, someone whispers, and a shocked silence falls over the crowd. I bow my head at the noblewoman, feeling nervous and self-conscious. I've heard some rather lovely things about you, young lady. Vivian says quietly enough that I'm the only one who can hear her. She's stunning, but her presence is calm and commanding. I can only imagine how extremely well-respected she must be among the court. I can recognize my family's extraordinary perfumes anywhere, she says, raising her voice to address the crowd this time. With their highnesses' permission, I can identify the potion that healed the princess. Prince Eric looks at his sister, who nods at him slightly. Very well, Eric says. Let Lady Vivian settle this matter once and for all. I hand the small bottle to Vivian. If what I've heard about her family's gifted sense of smell is true, she will be able to identify the perfume as my original creation. Vivian holds the ornate little bottle up to her nose, inhaling deeply. She closes her eyes, pondering the scent. There are notes of licorice root, hints of stinging nettle, and yes, apple blossom and ginger. None of my family's perfumes have these exact ingredients. The effects are similar, but the scent is slightly different. I believe this young lady is telling the truth. Tanya must have created this perfume herself. Despite my relief, my heart is still pounding in my chest. And there are several amazed gasps around me. That's incredible, someone says. How did she do that? Vivian glances back at me, returning the small vial to my hands. You have a phenomenal talent, my dear girl. The craftsmanship required to not only recreate but modify this kind of formula is truly magnificent. If it wasn't for your unique silence, I fear Princess Kathy might not have recovered in time. You saved her life. I curtsy slightly in response to her words, dazed by her praise. I glance at Marco, who gives me a grateful and encouraging nod. Thank you, my lady. It was nothing. It most certainly was not nothing, and please call me Vivian. I think you and I will be spending plenty of time together. A talent like yours is not meant to be wasted. I normally would never work with someone outside of my family, and I have not taken on an apprentice in a very long time. But with a gift like yours, I will gladly make an exception. What do you say, Tanya? Would you like to be my apprentice? I stare at her, in awe. I would be honored. To be Lady Vivian's apprentice is an unparalleled privilege. Everyone around me seems surprised and impressed. Well, everyone except for Lily, whose expression turns oddly pale at her mother's words. Hend, Wei Day. After all the commotion, I'm relieved when everyone files into the ballroom, ready for the celebration to commence. Candlelight glows around me, and the guests gather around the edge of the main floor as the orchestra prepares to play the first song. Prince Eric steps out into the center of the crowd, Lily standing beside him. But much to my surprise, instead of turning to her, the two of them walk in my direction. I'm stunned as Eric stands before me and bows politely, offering me his hand. "May I have the pleasure of the first dance?" he asks. At the sight of Eric inviting me onto the floor, Lily quickly rushes to Marco, all too eager to dance with him in my place. All eyes are on me as the prince waits for my reply. "Me?" I ask meekly, struggling to believe that this is actually happening. "Yes, you. It would be an honor to dance with the girl that saved my sister's life, as a thank you." I feel safe by Marco's side, and the idea of stepping away from him and into the middle of the crowd to dance with the prince is somewhat mortifying. I'm flustered by all the attention, but with so many nobles watching, I cannot afford to disrespect the prince by refusing him. Hesitantly, I give Eric my hand, trying not to trip on my unsteady feet as he guides me onto the center of the dance floor. The warm glow of the ballroom glistens on my golden dress, which flutters around me with ethereal elegance. Everyone watches as the music starts to play, and we begin to dance. But amidst the twinkling lights and the swell of the violins, all I can think about is Marco's gaze from across the room, burning into my soul bond, Lily's point of view. Although I can't help but resent the way everyone watches Tanya and Eric, I rejoice at the opportunity to reconnect with Marco. He cuts quite the dashing figure in his formal attire. His usually shaggy blonde curls are neatly brushed, making him look younger and softer. He guides me through the first half of the dance, but even as his strong hand rests on my waist, there is no trace of the old desire that used to fill his handsome blue eyes when he looks at me. In fact, on more than one occasion, his gaze grows distant and absent-minded, and I catch him looking past me. Subconsciously, his attention keeps getting pulled toward Tanya and Eric. Jealousy courses through my veins, and I bat my eyes at Marco. "We don't dance like we used to anymore," I say with a shy smile, my tone soft and flirty. He clenches his jaw at my words, stiffening. "There is no we. Not anymore," he says gruffly. "You and I are a thing of the past. Tanya is my present." Envy turns to indignation, and I have to make an effort to keep my expression pleasant. My engagement with Eric has brought me closer to power and riches, but Marco was always the handsome one, the strong one. After I broke things off with him, I honestly expected him to wait for me. Even now, there's still a part of me that believed he would always love me. The way he looks right through me as though he could only see Tanya is infuriating. There's a change of rhythm in the song, and the gentlemen on the dance floor twirl their dance partners. I manage not to gasp as Marco takes advantage of the moment and spins me away, leading me right into Eric's arms. Quickly, I compose myself and continue dancing with Eric, trying to pretend that the switch was intentional. I can't believe Marco had the audacity to swap me right out of his arms to dance with Tanya. Tanya all but stumbles into Marco's waiting embrace before falling into step across from him. The two of them look like such a beautiful couple. His golden hair matches her gown, and the shades of green in her eyes complement the deep blue in his as they gaze at each other. The sight of them makes me furious beyond words. He holds her so tenderly, and she moves with him so gracefully, gliding along to the music. She looks like a fairy tale princess that fell into his arms, and I hate her for it. I think I should do something. I wish I could spend forever like this dancing with Marco, but all too soon the song ends, and the crowd turns to the ballroom's main door as the Lycan king and queen arrive. Everyone except for the royal family bows at their arrival. My gown swirls around me as I curtsy alongside the others. But I catch a glimpse of the queen. She stands tall beside her dignified husband, but I'm surprised to see her eyes fixed on Marco. Her gaze is so filled with hatred and envy that it sends a chill down my spine as the king motions for everyone to rise. He stands at the edge of the balcony, officially welcoming his guests to the palace to celebrate the autumn equinox. Then he gives a short but eloquent speech about the changing of the seasons throughout the kingdom and the fall harvest. Once the king is finished speaking, everyone disperses, and Marco is called by the Lycan king to have a talk. The ballroom feels far too large and crowded without Marco by my side. So I quietly slip out one of the small corridors. The palace is enormous, each corridor grander and more ornate than the last, and I wander around and take in the sights. I don't head in any particular direction, simply enjoying a bit of peace and quiet away from everyone in the main hall. I find a pleasant little window nook and sit by the edge, admiring the night sky outside through the glass panes. The curtains hanging by the window make the space feel cozy and intimate, and I think I'll sit here for a while before exploring some more. However, my absent-minded little tour of the palace is interrupted by the sound of voices approaching. "I cannot approve of your marriage to that girl," the voice says. My heart races as I realize it's the king talking. He and Marco walk casually down the corridor, oblivious of my presence on the little ledge behind the curtains. She is a surrogate's daughter with no legitimate essence line. I had one of my men dig into her past, and not only is she an Omega, she never manifested a wolf. The king goes on. Marco's answering laughter is hollow and sarcastic. "It's a bit late for you to disapprove, seeing as I'm already married to Tanya. Besides, what exactly are you dissatisfied with? The fact that she's an Omega and an outcast, or that she's a surrogate's child just like me? Because from where I'm standing, it seems to me like we're a perfect match." The king's furious growl chills me to the bone. "Watch your mouth, boy. You know full well that you are not just a surrogate's child. You are the son of my fated mate. Even if everyone thinks Eric must be the next Lycan king, you should know that the day your curse is cured, I will declare you as my heir. I will definitely find a cure for your curse. Let that weak girl leave you in a hurry." "You mean I'm the son of your rejected fated mate?" Marco spits back at his father. "My mother loved you. She may have only been the humble princess of a small kingdom, but she left everything behind to be with you. You took her innocence and had a child with her, but you refused to marry her." The pain and rage in Marco's voice make my heart ache, even as my mind reels with the information he's revealed. Everyone believed Marco's mother was just a random surrogate. The king must have kept the truth secret. Even when her kingdom was destroyed and her family was silenced, my mother stayed by your side, and you did nothing to help. I was just a prince at the time. I had to think of my own kingdom. Marrying an alpha's noble daughter as my queen was the best way to protect Midor. You chose strength and power over the love of a fair and gentle woman who adored you. You declared that I was a mere surrogate's son instead of admitting I was the illegitimate child of your fated mate because you valued your throne more than your family. My mother was beautiful. She was loving and kind, and you let her die alone, thinking she didn't deserve you when the truth is, you're the one who wasn't worthy of her. I have to raise my hands to my lips to stifle a shocked gasp. The two of them walk right past the window nook without noticing me, too caught up in their argument to realize I was there. The last thing I hear as their footsteps fade is Marco's voice, distant but determined. "You are my king and my father, but I am nothing like you. Even if I weren't cursed and you gave me the throne, I would never be like you. I can get that place by myself, and I will never sacrifice my wife." Ad day. "Tanya, there you are." Lily's voice startles me, so much I nearly jump out of my soul bond. After Marco and the king left, I started to make my way back towards the ballroom. "Sorry, I was just exploring the palace. Is everything okay?" I ask, still shaken by everything I just heard. "Actually, that's exactly what I wanted to talk to you about. This is your first time in the palace, right? I thought I'd give you a little tour," she says with a sweet smile. "Thank you. That's very kind, but I wouldn't want to inconvenience you." "Not at all. I insist," she says, taking my hand before I can protest. Besides, I can show you Marco's room here in the palace. Surely you must be curious about your husband's old living quarters. Now that she mentions it, I am curious to see the place where Marco lived before he moved to the townhouse. But going there without him feels invasive. Are you sure it's okay for us to go? I shouldn't intrude, I mumble. Nonsense. I'm sure he wouldn't mind. I wouldn't have the key to his room if I wasn't allowed to use it. Lily leads me through the palace until we reach a large set of double doors. We pause at the entrance, and she presses a heavy iron key into my hand before nodding towards the door. Go on. Make yourself at home. I'm going to rejoin the party and attend to some guests, so feel free to have a look around. Take as much time as you want, she says with an encouraging nod before walking away. Hesitantly, I slide the key into the lock and push open the heavy doors. The bedroom is larger than the entire apartment I used to live in. In my small town outside the capital, it's not as cozy as the townhouse, with its elegant architecture and antique furniture, but it's undeniably beautiful. I walk into the room, slowly taking in the sights. Next to the expensive-looking double bed, there's a wooden nightstand with several picture frames. Each photo shows Lily and Marco together, smiling happily at each other. On the other side of the bed, there's a matching nightstand with more pictures, and I realize there are two of everything. 2 matching cups are on the table by the window, and 2 sets of towels in the bathroom, with Lily and Marco's initials embroidered. Across the room, there's a counter with a ceramic vase containing a bouquet of lilies that have since died and dried out. But between the crisp old petals, there's a note from Marco addressed to Lily. I find a pink scarf lazily tossed on the lounge chair that Lily must have left behind from her last visit, and an earmarked fashion magazine on the counter. I can tell that this is a place where she felt comfortable and at home, and Marco clearly made the space for her. I feel impossibly small compared to this monument to their relationship. The space is filled with memories they must have shared, evidence of years they spent together. The more I look around, the more apparent it becomes that this room is a testament to Lily and Marco's relationship. There's a small layer of dust covering multiple surfaces, as if no one, not even Marco, had dared to disturb the treasured memories that littered every corner of the room. I walk towards a grand piano on the other side of the room. On the music stand, there's some unfinished sheet music and scribbled notes in Marco's handwriting. At the top of the paper is the handwritten title, Lily's Lullaby in D minor. He'd composed entire sonatas for her, and I didn't even know he played the piano. There is so much history here I could never compete with. Every intimate detail of the room feels like a knife in my heart. The iron key Lily gave me is heavy in my hand. I feel like I could shrink into myself until I disappeared completely, leaving no trace behind. I walk out of the room, gently closing the doors behind me as I'm crushed by the sensation of loss and defeat. I can't go back to the ballroom and face the crowd of cold faces that would be waiting for me, so I head outside, desperate for fresh air and a change of scenery. But even as I walk away, my mind is filled with echoes of what I heard and flashes of what I saw. The memory of that room plays over and over in my head. Even when I close my eyes, I'm flooded with the image of the dead flowers, those lilies looking painfully beautiful even when dried out and forgotten. I can't shake away the thought of Marco's words on the tender little note. For my fated love, Lily, forever yours. Marco, she's his fated mate. I'm not. I stumble out of the palace and into the gardens, feeling tired and mildly nauseous. I make my way to the edge of a large pond, focusing on the sight of starlight glistening on the surface of the dark water. Someone approaches me, and I wince when I realize Ayana and Lily join by the pond, ruining any chance at peace and quiet. Not here. Not now. It's been a long night, and I'm in no mood to be tormented further. The king's voice still rings in my ears, the secret of Marco sitting heavy in my heart, not to mention the crushing sorrow of everything I saw in Marco's old room. The way Lily smiles at me so innocently makes my soul bond crawl. My dear Tanya, is everything all right? Lily asks. You look like you've just seen a ghost. I did. And she knows it. She's the one who showed me the ghost of her past relationship with Marco. I just needed a moment alone and some fresh air, I say softly. I don't have the energy for any more drama. I just want to hide from all of this and rest for a while. Well, I'm amazed you're still in the palace at all, Ayana says, with none of Lily's forced politeness. It's not like anyone wants you here. I don't answer. The last thing I want is to get involved in some kind of confrontation with her. It's a pity that you even showed up tonight, she goes on. Everyone knows you don't belong. Prince Marco is the second prince of matter in you. You're just a charity case at best, a horrible mistake at worst. He can dress you up and dance with you. But we all know the truth. You are nothing. My grip tightens on my purse at the sting of her words. It will be such a shame when your marriage falls apart. It was scandalous when Lily and Marco broke up, but he inevitably gets fed up with you and tosses you aside. It will be downright pathetic. And I'm sure you would be delighted if we broke up, I say. My voice soft but firm, just like you were happy when Marco and Lily broke up. After all, it can't be easy seeing the guy you like with another girl. I'm surprised by the strength of my own words, not aggressive but just defensive enough that Ayana gawks at me. Too much has happened tonight. My heart feels sore and raw from everything I've learned. I don't want to fight. But I've been pushed too far this time. This time, I won't stand by as she attacks my marriage. She's not just insulting me. She's insulting Marco, and that cuts too deep for me to stay quiet. What are you talking about? Ayana snaps, her wide eyes darting from me to Lily. She sneers at me, looking ready to claw my face off. But I don't recoil. I stand my groan, finding courage within me that I did not know I possessed at the thought of everything Marco has endured. His father betrayed Marco's mother, rejecting his fated mate just like Lily betrayed Marco when she chose to be with Eric. Marco endured heartache and injustice, but he was still kind enough to marry me and rescue me. How dare Ayana call that marriage pathetic? You've always liked Marco, haven't you? Even when he was dating your friend Lily. Is that why you hate me so much? Because I'm married to the man you're obsessed with? Ayana steps towards me, baring her teeth. Shut up, crazy rival. You're talking nonsense. I saw you on Valentine's Day, you know. I saw you at the restaurant in the rain watching us. That was you, wasn't it? I never wanted to cause any trouble. I never wanted to bother anyone, but you sent those roses and the note as a prank to hurt me. It was all you. Wasn't it? Shut up, she says again. Your crush has made you bitter, Ayana, but that doesn't give you the right to hurt others. Making other people unhappy won't make you feel better. I said, shut up. She shrieks, shoving me back so hard that my purse falls out of my hands. I reach down to pick it up. Before I can get it, Ayana swoops in and grabs it, spitefully throwing it into the pond. So, Lycan, no. What have I done? I stare in horror as the golden little clutch plops into the water and starts sinking. Ayana stares at me with a wicked smirk, haughty and triumphant. How can she be so cruel? There's something precious in that bag, something more valuable than any accessory. It's the same purse I wore to the auction, and a sickening realization twists my stomach into a knot. The jewels named after Marco's mother, the Marie Gorietti earrings, are still inside that bag. Please help me. I have to find it, I say as I rush to the edge of the water. Neither Lily nor Ayana moves an inch, clearly uninterested in assisting me. My eyes scan the pond as my heart pounds furiously in my chest. Those earrings were a family heirloom left to Marco by his mother before she died. If I don't do something, that treasure will be lost to the depths of the enormous pond and lost forever. But I can't swim. I'm equally mortified and terrified as I watch the purse disappear under the surface. I've already hesitated too long. It's now or never. I hike up the hem of my gown and kick off my heels before stepping into the murky waters. What are you doing? I have to get it back. I call out, ignoring their scoffs and Ayana's malicious laughter. I trudge deeper into the cold pond. The floor is slippery with seaweed and mud under my bare feet. I move further away from the edge, my eyes fixed on the last spot where I saw the purse before it sank. Marco's mother was a gentle and beautiful woman. Those earrings are the last thing she left behind. For her son, I have to find them. The water is up to my neck now, and I frantically rummage through the dark water in search of the purse. Marco gave those earrings to Lily as a token of his love and trust, and she tossed them aside, auctioning them off. But I could never do that to him. I cough as the water gets into my eyes, but I keep going deeper and deeper. When my hand finally grasps the familiar material of the little handbag, I could cry with relief. Somewhere in the distance, I hear the commotion of a crowd gathering by the edge of the pond, but I barely register it. I kick at the darkness, my dress heavy with water. My slippery fingers unclasp the little latch on the purse, and I rummage blindly through its contents until I feel the ornate, solid shape of the earrings in my hand. I clutch them tightly, but I've gone too far into the pond, and my feet can't touch the bottom anymore. I flail, kicking at the emptiness around my legs and gasping as I try to keep my chin above the surface. Several people have gathered outside. In the distance, I see Lily looking around frantically and then throwing herself into the pond. Figures rush toward the pond. With a loud scream and a tremendous splash, Lily deliberately jumps in, and all I can do is keep struggling against the weight threatening to drag me down. Not for the first time. I wish with all my might that I had a wolf to shift into and give me strength. But all I can do is gasp for air as my limbs grow cold and sore with effort. My muscles scream against the strain, my head growing light as my body becomes heavier. I can't swim. I can't even float as water seeps into the fabric of my gown and drags me down. Everything is becoming blurry as I fight to stay on the surface, coughing and gasping. But there, in the distance, I see him. Marco and Eric run towards the pond, and I cling to hope like a life raft as the princes rush towards me. No, not towards me. I realize in a daze that the gathered crowd is pointing at a spot closer to the edge where Lily threw herself in. Lily flails and screams, splashing about as everyone's attention is drawn to her. Help me, please. I want to cry out, but my lungs burn with the cold, and my chest is tight and icy. Marco beats his brother to the edge of the water and jumps in gracefully. But his focus is centered on Lily's thrashing form, and I realize that he's not coming to rescue me. He doesn't see me. I can't hold on any longer. The darkness wraps itself around me like a shroud, and the water pulls me under. A distant, childish part of my mind wonders if Marco will miss me. The last thing I see is his handsome frame reaching for Lily before the cold consumes me, and everything fades to black. Lily's screams ring in my ears, and she thrashes wildly in the pond, sending water in every direction. I race to her side, jumping in before Eric even reaches the edge of the pond. Lily wraps her arms around me with a gasp, her nails digging into my soul bond. I grimace as she splashes me, hauling her out of the water. Lily, calm down. Stop it, I got you. I growl at her, and she wiggles a bit less at my command. I carry her out, setting her down gently on the ground. Eric quickly joins us, his expression wrought with worry. You shouldn't have done that, my brother says quietly to me. I would have gone in to rescue her. I know Lily is not mine to rescue. She's with Eric now, and he's the one that should be rushing to her aid. But I'm faster and stronger, and I would have done it for anyone. Even though Lily and I aren't together anymore, I wasn't going to stand by and watch as she drowned. You're welcome. I growl at him sarcastically before nodding towards Lily. Take care of this. Eric only glares resentfully at my biting tone before kneeling beside his fiancée. I step back, giving them some space. Lily, are you okay? What happened? He asks. It was an accident. Ayana knocked her purse in the pond. Lily coughs, her voice overly breathy. Oh, Eric, I was so scared. I feel so faint. I roll my eyes, not wanting to get involved in whatever drama Ayana stirred up. Lily is safe, so I get up to head back into the ballroom and look for Tanya. But before I take a single step, Lily sputters. I told her not to go in. I tried to go in after her to help. I'm sorry I didn't stop her in time. I whirl around to face Lily again, my brow furrowing. Her? Who else went in? I ask, and it's more of a demand than a question. Lily takes an exaggeratedly slow breath. Tanya went into the pond. I think she was trying to get her purse back. Her words fade, and I don't register much of what she says after my wife's name. My eyes widen, scanning the dark waters. Something tightens in my chest as panic, unlike any I've ever known, fills me. I jump back in. Sabend, Tanya's point of view. Dying happens very slowly, and then all at once. At first, everything hurts, cold and tight and dark around me as my lungs scream for air. Then, I lose sight of which way is up and which way is down, and the pain quiets. It becomes a distant whisper as I feel myself fading, like falling asleep. The strength seeps out of me, and my eyes slip shut, my limbs becoming loose. For a moment, I swear I can feel my heartbeat slowing softer and softer, with each beat. Then, a kiss brings me back from the edge of death, cutting through the darkness underwater. Someone's lips press fiercely against my own. Air is pushed past my cold lips, my tired lungs heaving as a breath is blown into me. Life shocks back through me, as if waking me up from an awful nightmare, sensations slowly returning to me. Strong arms wrap around me, pulling me out of the blackness. I'm still cold and dizzy. Everything feels so far away, but I'm not afraid. I feel safe in this desperate embrace. If I died, perhaps these are the arms of my angel, coming to carry me away to a place of warmth and rest. But then we break through the surface of the water, and the world rushes back at me. I gasp, welcoming oxygen into my aching chest. Marco holds me as I struggle to steady my breathing, and the realization hits me like a crashing wave. I'm alive, and I'm not alone. Marco carries me out of the pond, our drenched clothes clinging to our bodies. The crowd has started to disperse, less concerned with my safety, while Lily is the center of attention. Several people register Marco and me as he emerges from the pond and lays me on the grass. I'm shivering slightly, and both of us are panting, but as soon as Marco's breathing steadies enough for him to get a word out, he growls at me. What were you thinking? I'm too shaky to answer right away, so I just look down, unfurling my frozen fingers to reveal his mother's earrings in the palm of my hand. Marco's eyes widen at the sight of them, and then narrow in disapproval at the relief on my face. You could have died, he says, his voice low and angry. You nearly drowned because of a pair of earrings. I frown up at him, confused by the frustration on his face. I'm still dizzy and lightheaded. But I manage to reply, they were your mother's. He only stares at me in disbelief. Your mother left them for you, and you gave them to Lily. They're important, I say simply. A palace guard approaches us, discreetly handing Marco a towel to dry himself off. He takes it and dismisses the guard, looking down. How did you know they were a gift? How did you know I gave them to Lily? I rub my eyes with the back of my hand, brushing off little droplets. There was a note from you in the box, for my love. These earrings are a token of love, first from your mother, and then from you to Lily. I mumble, trying to explain. A token of love is a treasure. Something so precious is worth the risk. He shakes his head, but I can't tell if he's still mad at me. His expression becomes quiet and unreadable. I'd never seen him so protective. He looks at me, and for a second, I get the feeling like he's seeing me for the first time. There's still frustration and disapproval in his blue eyes, but also a hint of something else I can't quite identify. A strong emotion hovers in his deep eyes, as if he is trying hard to suppress it. Yet it's still about to erupt. "I'm sorry," I whisper. "I didn't mean to cause a scene. Really. I hold out the earrings to him. They're important to you. I had to protect that." He doesn't say anything, and he doesn't take the earrings from me. Instead, he tosses the towel at my face. I sigh somewhat ungracefully into the fabric, rubbing it against the back of my head to try and dry out my hair a little. With the towel over my eyes, I don't see him moving closer to me. But the next thing I know, his arms are wrapped around me. Marco, I can't see," I grumble, squirming slightly, but he pulls me against him, holding me even tighter. I go still, holding back my protests as I hear his muffled voice through the fabric. "My wife is more valuable than any object. Foolish little flower. A token of love is precious, but a life is priceless. You are far more important to me." I'm hot and cold all at once, the fever racking through my body. The chill of the pond from that night seems to have seeped into my bones, making me shiver. Even a sweat clings to my soul bond. My hand rests on my stomach as guilt courses through me, stronger and sharper than any discomfort from the fever. If I were the only one sick, I wouldn't mind. But at that moment, when I jumped in after the earrings, I forgot that I'm not just making choices for myself anymore. There's a child growing in me that will suffer the consequences of my mistakes. I berate myself for not having thought of that when I recklessly threw myself into the water. If this baby suffers because I made myself ill, I'll never forgive myself. What kind of mother will I be? Something shifts on the best beside me, and I wince at the stiffness in my joints. My eyelids are heavy with fatigue, and everything seems blurry and far away, like I can't tell whether I'm awake or dreaming. Suddenly, someone's lying beside me, gently adjusting me to rest against his embrace. His arms wrap around me, and in spite of the burning fever, I welcome the warmth. Wrapped up in him, everything is less painful. A hand rests on top of mine, fingers delicately entwining with my own. "It's going to be okay," says a deep but caring voice. "Marco, I must be dreaming after all. Or perhaps the fever is making me imagine things. I'm so groggy, I can barely tell. The baby," I mutter, and my thoughts are jumbled and incoherent. The baby deserves a better mother than me, someone competent enough to care for them. "Shh." The voice shushes me gently. Fingers tentatively stroke the soul bond on my abdomen, guiding my own hand and rubbing my belly tenderly. "Don't worry, little flower. The baby is going to be just fine, I promise." His words lull me into a comfortable daze, and I feel myself relax against him. After a while, the voice cuts through the fog in my brain once again. "You have to eat something." I grimace, feeling too nauseous. There's a soft chuckle in response to my childish expression. "Come on, little flower, you need to eat. What's your favorite food?" I groan slightly, too tired and feverish to think straight. "When I was little," I mumble. "When I was little, my aunt would make grilled cheese sandwiches with homemade tomato soup." I sigh at the memory. It had been years since she'd prepared for me. I stopped being worthy of my family's time and affection when they realized I didn't manifest a wolf. They realized I was defective, broken. But the memory of those sunny afternoons with my aunt still fills me with joy. She would let me help with the sandwiches while she made the soup from scratch. Once it was all done, we'd dip the bread and cheese into the softly spiced soup. Everything would be warm and cozy, and the house would smell like fresh herbs and toasted bread. It tasted like comfort, I whisper before dozing off. I don't know for how long I'm asleep before the sound of clanging in the distance wakes me up. I stretch slightly, trying to focus. The bed is empty, but there's a variety of loud noises coming from the kitchen. There's metal clashing, sizzling, and the sound of Marco cursing under his breath. I frown slightly, but I'm too weak to get out of bed. I'm not sure how much time passes while I lay there, drifting in and out of sleep. At some point, the sound of footsteps tugs me back into consciousness. I blink a few times in an attempt to clear my vision at the sight of Marco entering the room with a wooden tray full of food. His blonde curls are a shaggy mess, like he's been running his hands through his hair in frustration, and sweat coats his handsome brow. He walks to the edge of the bed and sets the tray gently on my lap. I stare at the food in surprise. There's a cup of tea in the corner and a small plate with a burnt grilled cheese sandwich. Besides it, there's a bowl full of what appears to be homemade tomato soup. Under the bowl itself is a crumpled and stained piece of paper, and it takes a few seconds for my mind to make sense of the scribbled words. The recipe is written in my aunt's handwriting. "Go on, eat," Marco commands, as if I were a child. I silently obey. He watches me curiously as I dip the corner of the sandwich into the soup and take a bite. It tastes not quite like my aunt's. The grilled cheese is slightly burnt, and the soup is somewhat over-seasoned, but it's still tasty. I pick up the frayed piece of paper, holding back a smile when I see drops of food that were spilled onto the recipe. "Where did you get this?" I ask. Marco quickly snatches the sheet from me, and I frown at the little burn marks on his fingers as he quickly shoves the recipe into his back pocket. "Your aunt is a very busy lady. She was rather stunned to see a Lycan prince show up at her home. But she insisted that she didn't have time to cook for you. He must have shifted into his wolf form and run all the way to our village outside of the capital, where my old pack lives. So she gave you the recipe, and you made it yourself?" I ask. He nods somewhat dismissively, and I realize I don't have the words to thank him. The comfort food is not exactly the same as my aunt's, but the fact that Marco went through all that trouble to make it for me is quite possibly the sweetest thing anyone's done for me in my entire life. I gratefully eat every last drop, and all in all, it's the best meal I've ever had. Said. 10 hours trickle by, and I fall into a somewhat uncomfortable and restless slumber as my body finishes fighting off the fever. In the middle of the night, I wake up feeling dry and aching, and I drink some water from the glass on my nightstand. When I turn back, I realize Marco is sleeping beside me. I blush at the sight of him in my bed. He must have fallen asleep looking after me. I shuffle slightly to look at him, careful not to wake him. He looks different than he did when he fell asleep holding me during the full moon. He's lying on his side facing me. His breathing is uneven, and his brow is furrowed tightly. Outside, the waning moon casts a soft light through the window, illuminating his elegant features with a silvery glow. He told me that even on regular nights, the essence moon curse still hurts him, making it difficult to sleep. My soul aches at his suffering, and I hate the thought of him plagued by pain or nightmares. Hesitantly, I reach out towards him, my hand hovering a few inches away from his face. I brush my fingertips gently across his forehead, smoothing out the pained frown. His expression changes under my soft touch. When I start to pull back, his hand moves towards my own, fingers wrapping around my wrist. My eyes widen in surprise as he holds me in his sleep. His grip is not tight enough to hurt but firm enough that I can't pull away. His breathing has steadied somewhat, but when I try to squirm away, he just draws me closer. I let out a small gasp as he tugs on my wrist, and I lose my balance slightly. Collapsing against him, I stay completely still for a moment, worried that I've woken him by falling into his arms, but he remains unconscious. Instead of waking, he shifts slightly around me, accommodating me into his embrace. The way he wraps his arms around me is both possessive and soothing. He's so warm and solid against mine, his body sending sparks everywhere. It touches my own. I allow myself to stare at him for a minute, relieved to see the discomfort drained from his expression. The usual harshness of his features has melted away. He looks peaceful now, almost content in his slumber. He's sound asleep, completely unaware of the way he's pulled me close, his fingers lazily stroking in absent-minded little patterns and sending goosebumps along my soul bond. "Marco," I whisper, unsure of what to do. He doesn't answer. Instead, at the sound of my voice, he pulls me in even closer and tilts his chin down, so his lips graze my own. The kiss is tauntingly soft. His lips feather light against my own, which parts slightly in surprise. Shock and delight flow through me like a deep breath. I feel alive and awake, but relaxed and comfortable at the same time. I lie still against him, letting my eyes fall shut of their own accord as I melt into his kiss. Once I'm fully recovered, I visit Lady Vivian's home in the palace every few days to learn her craft. The days I get to work as her apprentice quickly become the highlight of my week. Her wing of the palace is not as grand as the ballroom or the main hall, but I can tell from the moment I step through the doorway that Lady Vivian's home is filled with love. She has a delicate woman's touch and carries herself with admirable grace and dignity. She looks young for her age, but there are a few tiny wrinkles around her eyes when she smiles that make her look friendly and enchanting. "Careful when diluting the oils, dear," she says, watching as I pour the contents of a dropper into a larger bottle. "Remember that the concentration of the extract will affect the intensity and duration of the fragrance." I follow her advice, carefully mixing the solutions. There's something incredibly soothing about being around Vivian, and I can't help but feel the need to make her proud. "Well done, my dear," she says brightly. She leans forward to smell the perfume I've just finished bottling with an approving glint in her eyes. "Absolutely perfect. Your talent does not cease to amaze me." I beam at her praise before jumping slightly at the sound of footsteps approaching. Two handsome young men enter the room, both of them sharing a resemblance with Lady Vivian. "Your latest creation smells divine, mother," says one of them. Vivian stands beside me, placing her hands on my shoulders as she greets the two men. "Actually, what you're currently smelling is a creation by my new apprentice. Isn't she wonderful, Tanya? I'd like for you to meet my sons." "This is Philip," she says, nodding towards the elder of the two. Philip steps forward with a pleasant smile and shakes my hand. "It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. I can see why our mother speaks so highly of you." I thank him with a curtsy before Vivian motions for the younger fellow. "And this is Thomas." Thomas skips the formalities and goes right in for a hug. His friendly enthusiasm takes me by surprise, but I can't help the laughter that escapes my lips at his charismatic energy. "Lovely to meet you," he says, stepping back with a grin. "Please call me Tommy." As he pulls away to look at me, a curious expression passes over his eyes. He glances at his mother, and then back at me with amusement. "It is said that my mother was the loveliest lady of the court back in her day. I think perhaps that title has now been passed to you, Tanya the apprentice." My eyes widen slightly at his flattery. Thomas, or rather, Tommy, pinches my cheek playfully. "You even look kind of like her, you know," he adds, and his mother laughs lightly at his lively sincerity. They're all so open and jovial, even Philip's calm and grounding presence. They're so welcoming to me. And they seem so at ease with each other. This is what a happy, loving family must be like. Sigh. 10. Lily's point of view. I make a point of going on a promenade around the palace on one of the days that Tanya is working at my mother's estate. I choose a route that allows me to walk right past her home and stop under the shadow of one of the trees near the window. When I peer inside, I feel my essence boil at the sight of my mother's hands on Tanya's shoulders. They both smile and laugh, working together as if they'd known each other their entire lives. When my brothers arrive, my jealousy only doubles. Philip, who's always so stern and thoughtful, actually smiles at her. Thomas shamelessly hugs her with all the excitement of a puppy dog making a new friend, even pinching her cheek affectionately. It bothers me to see them act so familiar and merry without me, to see them act that way with her. With every passing second, my envy intensifies, and I can't help but get flustered. I'm caught up in the sight of them together, my hand unconsciously curling into a fist by my side until my nails dig into my palms. By now, I should be used to Ayana's angry staring. But the glare she shoots at me the next day at work is so incredibly vicious, it chills me to my bones. The ruthless resentment in her eyes startles me so much I lose my footing slightly, and drop some of the paperwork I was carrying. One of my co-workers, a red-haired girl with freckles and a friendly smile called Ella, snickers. She knees beside me to help pick up the papers. "Don't pay too much attention to Ayana," Ella says to me with a giggle. "She's just bitter because she got stuck doing community service for 2 months." I thank Ella for her help as we finish gathering the documents I dropped. Really? Why? Prince Marco assigned it to her as punishment for nearly causing you to drown. I blink at Ella in surprise before making the mistake of glancing back at Ayana. "What are you staring at?" Ayana snaps at me. "Nothing. Oh, shut up!" She cuts me off before I can even explain or apologize. I wouldn't be so content if I were you. You think you can be all happy and comfortable because you're married to the second prince. But the truth is you barely know Marco. You don't know anything about him. So it's only a matter of time before the relationship falls apart. I'm sorry you feel that way, Ayana, I say with a soft frown. But I don't believe that. "Oh yeah," she asks mockingly. "Then tell me something about Marco. Do you even know when his birthday is?" Her question shocks me silent, and I bite my lower lip with embarrassment as she laughs. "How sad. The prince's birthday is in 5 days, and his own wife doesn't even know. That's pathetic." 5 days. Is his birthday really coming up so soon? I can't believe I had no idea, but Ayana has lied to me in the past and set me up. Everything she's said and done has been to hurt and humiliate me. What if this is just another cruel prank? I wait until my shift is over and leave work to talk to Oliver on the way home. I must hurry so I can be back in the townhouse before the evening. I need enough time to prepare tonight's dinner and light the doorway for Marco before he gets home. And if it really is his birthday in 5 days, there's much to be done. I wave at him from across a narrow street, and he smiles politely when he sees me. "Hey, Tanya," he calls out. "Hi, Oliver. Sorry to bother you, but I'm in a bit of a rush, and I need to ask you something really quick. Is it true that Marco's birthday is in 5 days? "Yeah, Marco's birthday is coming up. But a clock chimes from somewhere down the street, and between the ringing and my own excitement, I barely register his unfinished words. I wave at him again gratefully before continuing on my way, rushing home. 2 days later, Marco sits in the dining room while I finish clearing away the table. He's told me that he has servants to clean. But I don't mind it. I like feeling useful. Marco clears his throat awkwardly. "Tanya, is everything okay?" he asks, surprising me. "What?" "Yes, why? You've just been acting kind of strange lately. You seem a bit stressed, and I wanted to make sure nothing was wrong." "Oh, thank you for checking on me, but everything is fine. Really," I answer, perhaps a bit too quickly. Once I've finished cleaning up, an idea pops into the back of my mind. "I'm going to head out for a bit," I say, reaching for my coat. "Where are you going?" Marco asks before taking a long sip of water from his glass. "I'm going to the Moon Temple to speak with the messenger mage," I answer, and he chokes, spitting out his drink in surprise before coughing quickly. I hand him a napkin and a new glass of water, quickly explaining myself. When I lived in the small village outside of the capital with the black-eyed pack, I always heard stories about the powerful wolf spirits of the mages who served as messengers to the goddess and how they would provide counsel to those in need. I visited the temple a while ago, and it really helped me, so I'd like to go tonight. Marco only nods at me dismissively, although some color has drained from his handsome face. When I arrive at the Moon Temple, I make my way to the small room off to the side. I climb into the cushioned seat of the little chamber, smiling slightly at the sight of the veiled silhouette on the other side of the sheer curtain. "Hello," I say softly, surprised by the sound of panting as if the mage were breathing heavily after a run. "Are you okay?" There's some vague grumbling, and then a bit of coughing before the mage answers. "Yes, all good, proceed, my child. What can I help you with today?" "Well, I was wondering, could I ask you what kind of gift you like? Hypothetically, if your birthday was coming up, what would you like to receive?" "Meat," the voice answers excitedly, a bit gruffer than before. I sit there in stunned silence, unsure of what to say to that. There's a faint shuffling noise on the other side of the curtain, and then a bit more coughing before the voice becomes gentle and feminine again. "I'm afraid I've given you a strange answer to a strange question. Why are you a soul bonge me this?" The mage asks. "My husband's birthday is coming up, and with all my heart I want to give him the perfect gift, but what can I give to the man who already has everything? I've been racking my mind and can't figure out what to get him. I just want to make him happy, but I don't know how." There's a long silence as the mage seems to consider my words. Finally, after what feels like forever, comes the reply. "Have you asked your husband if he even wants to celebrate his birthday?" I just don't know what to do. I mutter in defeat. I don't know how he would want to celebrate exactly, but I want to make it perfect for him. There's a hesitant silence on the other side of the sheer curtain, and I stare at my hands, fiddling anxiously with my wedding ring as I proceed. Perhaps I've missed something. My husband, he's very special, and everyone knows it. But I see more to him than high society and status. He's the child of a surrogate, and his biological mother died when he was very young, just like me. My relationship with my stepmother was always strained, and my father never allowed me to celebrate my birthday. My father resented that I was born on a blessed harvest moon, but didn't manifest a wolf, so he considered my birthday a waste. Unlike me, Marco is very strong and powerful. I don't think the king hurt Marco like my father hurt me. But there are many to damage a child. I believe my husband has a complicated relationship with his own stepmother as well, and I don't think his father cared enough about him. I explain. They don't appreciate him enough. My husband deserves to be loved, not just for what he is, but for who he is. That's why this celebration is so important. I want to show my husband that I truly see him for who he really is, and I want to prove to him that he is cared for. After all, everyone deserves to feel loved. And everyone deserves to be celebrated on their birthday, right? A brief silence again, as the mage reflects on my words. "You have very sweet intentions, young lady. Your gift should reflect such earnest affection, but I'm afraid I don't know what to suggest. It is not my place to know what men desire. The best advice I can give you is to think of your husband's needs. You probably know him better than most. What do you think is something missing in his life that you could give him?" I pause for a moment, reflecting. What does the most powerful Lycan in the kingdom need? A good night's rest. Oh, I know! My husband suffers from nightmares and discomfort during the night. Actually, he even kissed me a few nights ago in his sleep. "What?" the mage asks, the voice suddenly deeper than it was a second ago. On the other side of the curtain, I hear the sound of shuffling and thumping, as if there were some kind of battle happening beneath the mage's dark veil. "Is everything okay?" I ask with concern. "Is there someone else over there?" "Sorry." "No, I mean everything is fine," the voice replies, the figure straightening up. It's just that it takes complicated magic with our wolf spirits for a messenger mage to, commune with the moon goddess. Yes. That's it. It can seem a bit odd when we're, giving counsel. Oh, I say softly, not sure of what else I should say. You were saying that your husband doesn't sleep well? Right. Yes, I say with a short sigh. My husband has strange nightmares, and I think he's not fully in control when he sleeps. He doesn't even remember that he kissed me the other night. Of course, I didn't mind it, but I don't want to bring it up and make him feel uncomfortable. So, I think the best thing I could give him is a gift to help him sleep better. It was perfect. Marco did so much for so many people. So for his birthday, I would give him the gift of rest. So aimed. How adc do sand. I stay up late that night, working into the early hours of the morning in my little laboratory in the attic of the townhouse. I work quickly and carefully, brewing up the little potion that would help my husband sleep. My conversation with the mage at the temple of the moon goddess was a bit odd, but it left me feeling determined and uplifted. The concoction bubbles as I add the fresh chamomile and sandalwood extracts to the lavender mixture in the beaker. Before transferring the concoction to the bottle, I cast my mind back to my last attempt at a healing potion. For some incomprehensible reason, the ingredient that managed to magically stabilize the mixture was my essence. I'm determined to ensure this extraordinary perfume helps Marco, so I take a long needle and prick my finger. As I let my finger hover over the solution, a few droplets of essence trickle down and fizz as they come in contact with the potion. Just like the first time, the perfume stabilizes, becoming clear and silky. The bubbles sizzle and the steam clears away, replaced by a warm and soothing fragrance. That's just what I was hoping for. The scent is light and calming, and I actually yawn after inhaling it. I hurry up and transfer the liquid into the special bottle I've selected for Marco's gift. The vial is made of blown glass, and the color is a lovely deep shade of midnight blue that reminds me of a peaceful night sky. I attach the silvery little stopper and tie a single, shimmery black ribbon around the neck of the bottle. It looks lovely, and my heart swells with hope at the thought of how it might help Marco. On the day of Marco's birthday, I take extra time decorating the townhouse. I dim the lights on the overhead chandelier, opting for elegant candlelight around the main hall. The flames flicker and illuminate the golden balloons I've hung up everywhere. Gold, like the crest of the royal family. Gold, like the wedding ring on my finger. Gold like the sun that chases away the full moon that brings him so much trouble. I've even managed to bake an elegant little cake with dark chocolate and orange zest. The rich, citrusy sweet aroma of fresh baked goods fills the house, making it feel more like a home. The bottle of extraordinary perfume I made for him is in a little blue box decorated with black and gold ribbons. I smile as I imagine the look on his face when he arrives and sees it all. But I'm pulled away from my thoughts by a knock on the door. I open it with curious catashing. It's a bit early for Marco to be back from work already, and he wouldn't need to knock to enter his own home. He has the keys. Lily and Eric stand on the doorstep, dressed in casual but elegant attire and holding a champagne bottle out to me as an offering. Tanya. Hello. I hope we aren't too early. Is he home yet? Lily says, handing me the champagne bottle before I even have the chance to ask her what it's for. Home yet? You mean Marco? I ask, still shocked to see them. Yes, we received your invitation to his birthday party. The card you sent us said we'd be celebrating in his townhouse tonight. What? Card? I'd actually hoped to celebrate privately with Marco tonight, and I certainly hadn't sent out any invitations. It's too late to figure that out now. Eric and Lily are already here, and I can hardly send them away. So I stand aside and let them come in. Lily dons her usual polite smile, but there's something else lurking in her eyes that I don't understand. Even Eric looks somewhat uncomfortable as I lead them into the dining hall and set the bottle down on the counter next to the cake and the gift box. It's not too long before there's another knock at the door, and I blink in surprise as Oliver and Ayana arrive. Like Lily and Eric, they both insist that they received an invitation to tonight's birthday party addressed from me. Oliver hovers in the corridor, looking particularly strange and uncomfortable. I barely have enough time to figure out what any of this means before there's a third knock on the door. Marco's sister arrives, and all I can do is usher her in with stunned silence. What is everyone doing here? Well, this is essentially awkward, Kathy says, and by the looks on everyone's faces, I can tell she's not the only one who feels that way. Why the hell are we having a party? Frankly, I'm not sure what any of them are doing here, but I smile at her politely, trying to be a gracious host. It's Marco's birthday, right? Yeah, it is. But my brother doesn't celebrate it. He never celebrates it. His birthday is on the anniversary of his mother's death. Who wants to have a party on the day their mom died? My heart drops at the same time as a satisfied smirk appears on Ayana's face. No. She set me up. That's why she told me about Marco's birthday in the first place. She must have sent out all the invitations in my name. I'm sick to my stomach at the thought of Ayana using the anniversary of someone's death as a twisted prank. How could she do this? Not only to me, but to Marco. At that precise moment, I hear my husband's voice outside, and the sound of a key jingling in the lock at the front door makes me panic. Hello? Tanya, I'm home. He's here. Goddess saves me. Marco is here, and I don't know what I'm going to do. There's no way I have enough time to take down all the ribbons, balloons, and ornaments that I've used to decorate the interior of the townhouse. There's no time. The best I can hope to do is hide the birthday cake, so I pick up the tray where I'd set the cake and gift down and whirl around to try and stash it away. But it's too late. I turn around and freeze at the sight of Marco hovering in the doorway. He stands there staring at me, his face unreadable as his eyes scan the gathered crowd. Nobody dares cheer or yell surprise. Everyone just stands there in deathly silence, and I wish I could disappear. I'm so ashamed. I could crumple into the ground. Marco takes a step towards me. Then another. Each step echoes in the quiet hall and feels like a blow to my heart until he's standing right in front of me. I stare at the floor, feeling like an utter fool. He doesn't say anything for a while, so I finally force myself to tear my eyes away from the ground and slowly lift my gaze to look at him. His face is cold and unfeeling, and I have no idea what he's thinking. I flinch as he moves slowly, but he simply lowers his attention to the tray in my hands and blows out the little candle I'd lit on the center of the cake. I hold my breath in nervous anticipation as he raises a hand and slides a finger across the frosting before raising it to his lips. His brows arch almost imperceptibly as he sucks the buttercream off his finger. It's sweet. He's so calm, so unexpectedly calm. Marco, I say finally, unable to bear the silence any longer. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I didn't know your birthday fell on the same day as your mother's. Before I can finish the sentence, he nimbly dips his finger into the frosting again. Only this time, instead of licking it off, he taps his finger on my face, leaving a smudge of chocolate on the tip of my nose. It's the most childlike thing I've ever seen him do. And for a moment, I swear I see the corner of his lip curl, ever so slightly in a hint of a smile. I'm completely frozen and perplexed, blinking up at him. No one else says anything as he lowers his gaze once again to the tray in my hands and picks up the decorated little gift box. He examines the packaging for a moment before looking back at me expectantly. Is this supposed to be for me? His words snap me out of my daze, and I hurriedly set the tray down before turning back to face him. I try to reach for the little box to take it back, intending to hide it or dispose of it. But he swiftly moves it away, raising it up to eye level as if examining the ribbons. It looks like a birthday gift. Were you planning on giving it to me? He asks smoothly. Is he teasing me? Why, yes, I stutter, still dazzled by the uncharacteristic trace of playfulness. It's a special potion, like the extraordinary perfumes. I made it to help you sleep better at night, but I was set up. I didn't know why no one celebrated his birthday. If I'd known, I would have never. What's gotten into you, brother? Kathy asks loudly. Marco looks over at his sister as if suddenly remembering we aren't alone in the townhouse dining hall. You've never celebrated your birthday before. Why does it this year? What changed? What's different, I don't mean to be rude. Marco cuts in, interrupting her. But I'm afraid it's time for everyone to leave. Tanya and I going to have a quiet dinner and celebrate privately. I genuinely don't know who is more surprised, Kathy or me. He really wants to celebrate alone with me. He's not even mad at me. As if to prove his point, he drapes his arm over my shoulders, pulling me in close. I feel like I'm in some kind of strange, wonderful dream. All I wanted was to make him happy. Is it possible that I succeeded in spite of Ayana's manipulation? My heart races in my chest as he holds me tightly. Thank you all for coming tonight, he addresses our gathered guests. I appreciate the gesture. But you should all go home now. I would like to spend my birthday alone with my wife. Tend. Why? Lily's point of view. By the time Eric and I return to our chambers in the palace, I'm still fuming internally with jealousy. Ayana must have been really desperate to set up Tanya like that and pull off that kind of prank. But he'd protected her. Even on the anniversary of his mother's death, he'd stood by Tanya's side and protected her from all of our judgment and potential humiliation. Seeing him wrap his arm around her and stand alongside her like that had been a slap across the face. I thought I knew exactly what I was giving up when I walked away from my relationship with Marco, but nothing prepared me for the way he's moved on. I left him. I'm the one in control, the one with the power. He should be heartbroken and lovesick with longing for me. Well, I didn't see that coming, Eric says with a chuckle. Eric sits on the living room couch with an amused smile on his face. And I make sure to maintain my composure. My brother and his new wife certainly seem to be getting along quite well. Wouldn't you say? They seem happy. I don't answer, schooling my expression in pleasant neutrality. A relationship like that looks quite good, Eric goes on, seemingly oblivious to the raging storm brewing within me. I wonder if you miss it. Tell me, Lily, do you regret walking away from a life of love with my brother for a life of power with me? His words take me by surprise, and I'm so unprepared for them that I almost gasp. Instead, I quick my head to the side slightly, looking at him with a perfectly innocent expression of hurt and confusion. Perhaps he was not so oblivious after all. Eric has always been the perfect gentleman, respectable, gullible, predictable, the perfect mark. But, as I turn to face him now, I can't decipher the look on his face. He looks so casual and disinterested, but his words suggest he's anything but. For the first time, I can't read him, and I can't make sense of it. What are you talking about, my darling? I say, keeping the usual pretense. I didn't choose to marry you for power. I love you. Eric chuckles at my lies as if he could see through them. He leans back in his seat, propping his feet up on the coffee counter. He seems somewhat amused by my statement. Come on, Lily, why don't you relax a bit? He says with a laugh. After all, we're the same, you and I. We have more in common than you think. I maintain my look of confused neutrality, still trying to decipher this new version of Eric that I'm discovering. In fact, neither one of us saw this coming. I'm talking about Tanya, of course. No one expected my brother to marry so soon after you broke his heart. But that girl is amazing. Don't you think Tanya is amazing? He asks with a feline smile, folding his hands behind his head as he leans back comfortably. I mean, no one in your family has been able to make the extraordinary perfumes with their unique effects and healing powers. None of the Monteneros inherited that special silence, right? And yet twice Nanya did it. Twice now. First, she made the elixir that cured Kathy's allergies, and now she's done it again with a new perfume to help my brother sleep. That can't be an accident or a coincidence, right? I say nothing, biting my lower lip as he goes on. You know, now that I think about it, Tanya actually resembles Lady Vivian quite a bit. Are you sure you don't have some long-lost sister, my darling? His question is posed as a joke, and when I step closer to him to examine his expression, he still looks like a gentleman. Charming, casual, classic. I clasp my hands behind my back and lean against a nearby pillar, so he doesn't see the way my fingers tremble. Wouldn't that be something? I reply, echoing his amused smile. Unfortunately, my mother only gave birth to one daughter, and you're looking at her. He hums softly to himself, like the whole conversation is some kind of curious joke. But even as he looks away from me, I can't shake off the feeling that he's seeing right through me.